all started now. This day's a turning point in my life. The day I begin living my life from the inside out. And I am transformed. I am transformed. Transform my life as I took my first step. I learned to achieve such a beautiful world. Such a beautiful world. Such a beautiful world. Such a beautiful world. Illuminates all around me. Transform my life as I took my first step. I learned to achieve.
Hi everyone, my name is Mirkovich and I'm your host for Family Today. This show is about everyone. It's for parents, grandparents, and young adults. It includes family dynamics and spirituality. How many of you would like to know what a codependency in a family is? And how many of you would like to know about family dynamics and how it plays out, the codependency issues in that family dynamic? Today I have a guest. Her name is Lisa Romano, and we're going to have a little background about her. Thank you. Welcome to Family Today.
I'm so happy to
Thank
be here.
you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So Lisa, let me ask you about your life's journey to recovery and to this path. Please share a
Sure.
little bit.
Well, I'm a life coach and an author. And
You're a certified life coach.
certified life coach, and I'm an author. And I primarily coach adult children of alcoholics and adult children who have been abused in childhood through narcissistic situations. I coach.
What does that mean exactly for the viewers out there? The narcissism, like for example, a lot of people say, what is that? What is it exactly? Maybe you could elaborate a little bit about that.
When it comes to children who are raised by
Yes.
narcissistic parents,
Yes.
children who are raised by parents who can't see them. And when I see them, I mean authentically see them on a heart level.
On a heart level, to be present for them.
Absolutely. You know, a child who's grown up in a narcissistic home is a child who has grown up feeling invisible and as if they are not allowed to express themselves, as if who they are as a person is irrelevant. And as you and I both know, children need to feel seen. They need to feel heard. They need to know that their emotions count. I mean, the only way a child can know that they're real is if a parent is able to attune themselves to that child's emotional experience. And all too often, a child's internal experience gets completely invalidated. Parents think it's irrelevant. Parents think they're being silly. And so when children grow up feeling disconnected from their parents, there's no way that they can connect to themselves.
But parents do not always understand that,
Exactly.
okay? Because we are all living an automatic pile.
That's amen.
So, so going back to how do you trace a narcissistic person? How, what is it that you see in a narcissist?
A narcissist.
What could be the signs?
Well, the number one sign that I have people look out for is a lack of empathy.
Okay.
So even if someone is on autopilot, when their child comes to them and says, "Mommy, I was bullied in school," that mother, even though she might be on autopilot, can stop and say, "What do you mean you were bullied in school?" She has the ability to connect
To connect, yes.
in that moment. A narcissist is someone who does not care about your feelings, doesn't care about your experience.
Would they just avoid a child?
They would actually, well, I wouldn't say avoid. They may even actually engage with the child, but the child's experience is irrelevant to them. So a parent who uses, I've had clients who have had parents who, one client in particular, she's in her 50s, and every time my client ended up having a relationship, the mother was threatened by that. So my client grew up feeling like she was responsible for her mother, who was an alcoholic.
Okay.
So now the mom is in her 80s. My client has not gotten married, hasn't had any real significant relationships.
Because of the mother. You saw that that was the issue.
The mom was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And my client was really raised to take care of her mother. So she was guilted into taking care of her. So every time my client wanted to do something just for herself, her mother would feel threatened by it.
That's a lot of, that's the world out there.
A lot of it,
Yes.
unfortunately.
And some of us recognize these issues when we see it played out in a family life, or when we encounter somebody, as soon as I see somebody talking to me, I notice all the isms and
That's right.
the isms, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, like an alcoholic. So, but it does it. See, I have a hard time even understanding what is the difference between codependent person and a narcissist. What is that?
Well, to me, if you ask
what
me,
is the difference?
a codependent person,
Because they could be both, right?
I believe that narcissists are generally codependent because they need another person as a narcissistic supply. So a narcissist really can't exist by themselves. They need somebody to supply them with their ego gratification, with ego stroking. So, but a codependent person is someone who doesn't have a self. They're not connected to their self. And they're looking for validation from the narcissist. And the narcissist is looking for validation also, but the narcissist feels entitled to that validation. A codependent doesn't feel entitled to validation. A codependent is constantly looking for validation. They're looking for permission to be who they are. A narcissist isn't looking for permission. A narcissist thinks they are who they are, and you have to mirror that back, like it or not. That is generally what happens. So if you're in a relationship, if it's a codependent narcissistic relationship, there are two people in the relationship, but both people are worried about the one person. So that's so if you're a codependent person and you're involved with another codependent person, that could play out. But in most cases, when it's a codependent person with a narcissistic person, both people are worried about the one person.
So you also coach, this comes to mind, professionals.
Yeah.
They're doctors, lawyers, athletes.
Absolutely.
And they all have these problems too. Yes,
We
they're
all
not
have.
exempt. They're not
No.
exempt from the world.
No, and interestingly enough, women who attract narcissists and sociopaths are usually very intelligent, high-functioning professional women who are also very highly empathic, who are very...
Empathic, you mean by they take on other people's feelings or thoughts and they act it out.
They can
Is that
sense,
true?
yes.
They could sense it. I'm an empath.
I believe it. I believe it. If you're very sensitive to how other people feel, and you can't even turn that off. You're in a room, there could be 100 people.
I could be walking in a room, very happy and joyful. Oh, I'm going dancing, da-da-da. All of a sudden, I see sour faces, this and that, and I want to make them happy.
Absolutely.
Typical codependent, right? So I noticed that in me because I also am a life coach, and so I did a lot of spiritual work. So I noticed that in me. I'm aware of it. But people that are not, they're just playing along and they don't even know what's going on. So I take on these energies and I act them out. And then my husband points it out to me. He says, you know, you came in, you were so happy, and all of a sudden you wanted to make everybody happy. And then you become not sad. I still am not sad because, you know, the face of bravado, you know, I'm happy anyway, you know. Are you happy? Am I doing everything okay for every one of you? So that's almost like my life story. A lot of your books are, you know, pointing to that. And you wrote 7 of them.
I'm working on my 7th right now.
But I wanted to ask you before that, that you dedicated your life to the adult child in the world. So what do you mean by that, the adult child in the world? So now they're adults, but you dedicated your life.
Absolutely.
And how? Tell me.
Well, I dedicate my life to the adult children of the world, primarily because, honestly, on a personal note, I have 2 adult children for parents.
Okay.
Meaning that they're unrecovered. They have no idea how their childhoods have affected them. My dad's mom committed suicide at 3 or 4 years old. His father was a violent alcoholic. And if my father was sitting with us, he'd say, didn't affect me. He is so completely blocked from that experience as a child. And how my father deals with that type of trauma is he just shuts down. He doesn't deal with feelings. And if you talk about feelings, he has absolutely no patience for feelings. He would ridicule us and tell us to get out of the room if we cried in front of him. He cannot handle emotions, and he's very controlling. So he tries to control everything out here because I think he's trying to avoid everything that's in here.
Inside, yeah, sure.
He doesn't know how to grieve. He doesn't know how to feel. He's too afraid to feel. And my mom was raised by 2 alcoholics as well. She never had a connection to either one of her parents. And so by the law of attraction, these two adult children of alcoholics find each other, they meet, they marry, and my mother is a typical codependent.
So people, you're saying, in other words, that codependents gravitate towards these kind of men?
Yeah.
Or women, we should say. But there's more men, do you think? What is your experience?
My experience is that more women are more comfortable reaching out for help. So more women look within, but I don't think that means that there are more codependent men or more codependent females. I think, you know, in terms of our society and what we're comfortable with today, most women are a lot more comfortable looking for help, and they're a lot more comfortable looking within. Where, you know, we've got a lot of barriers to break down. Men have to know that it's okay to reach out for help and that they are adult children too. And what's really interesting, the past couple of years, my coaching practice is almost leveled off, where I'm split, where my coaching practice is 50% men and 50% women, which I'm really, really excited about. I'm really excited about that.
Nice.
But I dedicate myself to adult children because I couldn't save my parents. I couldn't wake them up. They're not going to wake up. They're going to die this way.
But there's that desire to wake them up.
I don't have. I would like to.
Because your teaching skills and your expertise, and when you see them and you love them, you do want to, but you are also aware that you could be playing a codependent role and not to get pulled in to that dysfunction. Is that right?
Absolutely right.
Okay.
And there was a time in my life where that's all I wanted to do, was to wake them up. And there was a time in my life where I was unaware that I was seeking their validation. And when I went through my divorce from my first husband, they turned away from me. They sided with him.
Your parents?
Yeah.
Your parents?
Yes. They sided with him, and that was devastating. They moved away when I needed them the most, and that was devastating. But it taught me that no rescue boat is coming. It taught me to really look at myself, and when I discovered that I was codependent, and I could trace it back to being raised by two codependents who were codependent, and I began to understand my issues, and I was a little girl that was seeking their validation. Even in my divorce, I was looking for permission to be unhappy and permission to get divorced. And so when they moved away from me, they did the best thing they could have done for me.
They didn't allow you to get a divorce? Is that what
They didn't, not that they didn't
or-
allow me, but I was so codependent and
Because
below
a lot of
the veil.
families are going through that too. A lot of I am from Croatia, and I know people that grew up with me. I don't know if I should say this, but one of them said, "Oh, I can't wait till my mom and dad die so I could actually get a divorce because I'm miserable in this life."
Absolutely.
So I'm like, "Oh my God."
I used to
you
feel
know?
the same way.
But I'm saying that, but I grew up the same way, so you know, it's.
We don't realize it. We are really, you know, when we're below the veil of consciousness, as I like to say, we are seeking validation in ways that we don't even realize. We seek validation from our children, from our spouses, from our parents. And we really don't feel like we have a right to make a decision that's based on how we feel. And that goes back to feeling invisible as a child. If you don't know that what you think and feel is valid, even as an adult, you might not trust what you feel. And so you continue to seek validation. And that's what I did. So when I was unhappy, I went to my parents and told them. And they told me I didn't have a right to be unhappy. I have no right to get
I went through
divorced.
the same thing.
You live in a nice house. He doesn't beat you. What's the problem?
What's the problem?
What's the problem? But that's when they moved away. It was the best thing they could have done for me because it forced me to challenge what I believed.
Did you go through grieving, deep grieving?
Very much so.
Okay.
And that's what taught me to let go. When I realized I can't save them. They don't want to be saved. They don't want to see that we're codependent. My sister's husband committed suicide. And again, that's really, right before I published The Road Back to Me, I got a
The
phone
Road
call.
Back to Me, this book
Yep.
right here.
I received a phone call from my brother and he told me that my brother-in-law had committed suicide. And it was in that moment that I said, I'm publishing this book. I had sent out about 100 query letters to different publishers, and I hadn't heard from anyone. But in that moment, I said, I'll self-publish it.
But you really worked on yourself a lot. I mean, you know, to go through all of that grieving, a lot of people will stay stuck in there, in that
Absolutely.
grief process, and not move for fear of failing or doing something wrong again. And, you know, of deep grief, sometimes you can't move. You can't do XYZ, but you did.
Yep.
So God gave you the strength to go on and publish the book.
I think
Your first book, is that right?
I think what happened with me was that when I realized that I was codependent, and it became so crystal clear to me that I was doing the same thing to my children that my parents had done to me. I thought, if I don't leave, I'm teaching them to stay. And really, Maria, that was what really kept me moving. I have to do this for them. I have to teach them how to survive this and how to stand on their own 2 feet and how to listen to themselves. And, you know, and it really is amazing that I can say now that going through what I went through was the best thing for my children, because they are 3 children that listen to themselves. In spite of what their mother says, they listen to themselves.
So, but you have to be pretty awakened to listen to yourself. You have to go through your, when I was in Italy, I grew up in Italy, so, you know, the nuns there, I was in a convent. So the nuns there, I was 5 years old, they used to say, okay, so now before you go to sleep, go and to have an examination of your consciousness.
Right.
So what did you do? So what did that mean was, you know, what did you do today? What did you do for Jesus? What did you do for God, in other words, for higher power? And therefore, I kind of learned that, even though I resented being in that convent. You know, I felt so abandoned. You know, it was so many times that I was abandoned, and I went through a lot of grieving processes. And a lot of times I was stuck in my life. I felt I don't deserve this, I don't deserve a job, I don't deserve to be paid, I don't deserve anything. Even up to date, if I'm not aware, I would say, no, I don't feel like that. You know, like if you were to ask me, I would say, no, that's completely nonsense. But today, if you were to point it out to me, I will understand it in myself. I will recognize it in myself. So I like the way you say things, that people are unaware, that they are not aware. Say, did I say it right? Okay.
People are, when you're
that
unaware.
That made me smile, the whole day I was laughing.
When you're unaware, you're unaware, you're unaware. It's not your fault. And we're not designed to be aware. We're not. We're not designed to be aware. We're designed to think that what's happening here and now is happening to us. We're not really taught to understand that we're part of the process. You know, we're not taught to understand.
Somebody in this program said that, you know, sometimes you need more studying for a license than actually to become parents. So we do as we were taught by our parents, and if they were dysfunctional, and a lot of, I would say 90% in the world, there is dysfunction in the family, right?
Not our fault. It's not our fault.
It's not our fault.
But it is, you know, and we're just, our parents only did what they were taught.
They knew.
You know, and if I ask my clients to become the eye in the sky, and I ask them to imagine that they're standing on the moon, and they're looking down at the generations of family members that have come before them. And you can see an evolution, but it's slowly. So if Grandma was born in 1901, you can see that she was better than her mother, and then that her daughter was a little bit better than her mother. And so my mother was better than her mom. And
so
my
you
dad,
think it's yeah, of course, it's evolution. You know, as we're becoming in a higher state of being, of consciousness.
Becoming aware, absolutely becoming aware. So when I look at it that way, I can see that there is change. You know, but we're not taught to really objectify our life experience. You know, we're taught to really react to what's happening in our environment. And then we get stuck there. And then we don't realize that our childhood programming is why we're attracting the relationships that we have today. So then we're just caught up in divorce dynamics.
So let me ask you, how do you cut through those programmings? Because that's, I think, for me it was difficult, and I believe some of my clients, they say it's difficult, they go back to their own behaviors. Even though they go to a 28 days out and, you know, in a farm or somewhere.
Right. That's true.
And, you know, to do their recovery work, that's what it is. So still, they go back sometimes, you know, as they say in the 12-step movement, they say, you know, you go some steps backwards and then forward, or vice versa. So it's hard to change your thinking so you could change your life. As a lot of Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say that, now that he's deceased. And Dr. Joe Dispenza says that. You know, there's a way to reprogram your mind, isn't it?
Absolutely. The thing is, you know, I always tell people you can't fix a hole in the wall you can't see.
That's a good one.
You can't. You can't fix a hole in the wall that you can't see. So it's not about thinking, it's about your belief systems, and your beliefs are unconscious. So that's why a lot of cognitive therapy fails, and that's why a lot of therapeutic situations fail, because we're trying to talk to people in the conscious realm. But what's really at play is 95% is unconsciousness. 95% of what's happening is happening because of a subconscious belief that was programmed into you before the age of 7.
So do you, in any of these books, do you talk about rewiring your brain or changing your life? Which one is it? And
Well,
this one is Codependent Now What?
Codependent,
Here
now
it
what?
is. Oh, excuse me.
It's okay. It's not you, it's your programming.
And then we already presented the road back to me. And then this one is Loving the Self affirmations. Also, this could reprogram your mind.
Well, what these books do is they help you see the holes in the wall.
Yes.
My
Yes.
meditations, part of my 12-week program, and the meditations that I have on YouTube, they will help you.
Loving self affirmations.
So what that does is these books help you understand where the holes in the wall are. Where are the holes in my thinking? How did these belief systems get created? And it will help you understand what has to get done. Absolutely help you understand what has to get done.
And this one is Quantum Tools to help you heal your life now.
So I would say the last...
So I just asked you the question and the answer came to me.
Yep.
There it is.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of followers on YouTube,
Yeah.
over 50,000. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Oh, my God, when did you get
Yeah.
50 plus?
It happened very quickly.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a high power.
Yeah.
What would you attribute it to? I mean, I know that you're working highly. You work a lot, and now you're also invited to New Jersey.
Yes.
To what is that about?
I believe it's at the Mannequins Women's Club on
Okay.
Main Street.
Oh, I'm going to be there.
Awesome. And that is going to take place on March 26th.
March 26th. Okay.
And I've been invited by members of the AA and ACA to
And
talk to
adult
them.
children of alcoholics. Okay.
To talk to them primarily about childhood programming and the idea of understanding why we drink and why we end up in codependent relationships. It's not just about staying sober emotionally. It's not
Yes.
just about staying sober in terms of alcoholism. It's about understanding why we had a need to drink in the first place. What were we running from?
Escapism.
Yes.
Escapism. So it could be alcoholism, it could be gambling, it could be sex and love addiction.
Absolutely.
And what else?
It could be
All-
anything.
Anything.
Shopping.
Shopping, harming yourself.
Absolutely, self-harm. It's a way to
Self-harm.
avoid pain. You know,
Yes.
my theory on self-harm is that when you're in a lot of pain and there's nobody outside of you that can validate that reality for you, and you're being sent to doctors and they're trying to medicate you, and the root issue is not being resolved, a lot of tension and anxiety gets created in your being. And when we self-harm, that's a way to escape that tension and anxiety. But my theory is it also makes sense of some of the pain that we're experiencing. So if I harm myself and I bleed, or I cut myself and I
Right.
bleed, that pain makes sense. And so now just for a moment, this pain makes sense. I don't feel so crazy in this moment. So that's my theory. And also when you harm yourself, your brain releases certain chemicals that
Certain
actually
chemicals.
dull pain. So you're not crazy if you're self-harming. You're trying to escape.
You're appearing on February. We have 3 minutes, and then we have to do part 2.
Sure.
We didn't even cover anything
No,
yet.
no
You have so
problem.
much to say. Oh, thank you, Lisa.
No problem.
So where are you having this event? February 25th, I
Yes,
believe?
February 25th, I'll
Maybe
be
we
in
could
Long
put it
Island.
on the website and the screen. So go ahead, Lisa.
On February 25th, I'll be at Eastwind in Long Island, Wading River, Long Island, and I'll be doing a life coaching live, presenting a workshop, and it'll also be a beautiful gourmet brunch
Oh
from
my
11
God.
to 3.
I think I'm going to attend to that one too.
I'd love to see you there. Love to see you there.
So we are going to do part 2.
Okay.
Because, like I said, we're going to go ahead and do that. And your 2 Your breakthrough program is going to be on February 25th. We just covered that, right?
My breakthrough coaching program, actually, I coach a group of people inside my program through my website, and that's actually going on right now.
Okay.
I have a group of people that I'm coaching, taking them through the recovery process from beginning, figuring out where the holes are on the wall, and taking them through the recovery process.
Okay, so is there any signs that you would like to tell us about the codependent signs? You know, what would you see in a person? We have like 2 minutes.
I
then have to close.
think you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Do I seek validation? Do I feel visible? Do I seek approval? Do I feel real in my own skin? Do I not tell the truth? Do I say yes when I mean no, and no when I mean yes? Those are the types of questions to ask yourself. Do I do things for people because I expect them to treat me a certain way? Am I nice because I'm afraid to rock the boat?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
So these are the things to really ask yourself in self-reflection. And those, my 2 books, actually The Road Back to Me really helps you understand and identify how you can become codependent since you're a child. And my other books really help you reprogram your mind and give you different ideas to think about, because you really have to learn this ability to be self-aware.
So finally, do you see children being codependent? Of course, yes. That's the mechanism they have, so they could grow up, and you know they use these tactics.
Well, every child craves their mother and
Yes.
father's approval.
Sure.
And if they don't get it, they keep seeking approval throughout their lifetime. So it's very important for parents to approve of their children.
So they're like gods. The
They
parents
are
are like gods. Okay, so thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. Next, we will have a great show for you and your families to enjoy. So until then, goodbye for now, and see you next time.